Okay, so hi everybody, this is Leah, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. I haven't done a video for a couple weeks. We've been super busy, and I just wanted to go over some of the things that we were doing. I took some B-roll and thought I'd throw a video together for you, those that are interested in what we've been up to the past couple weeks since my last video. And just some life updates. March is always a gamble of what kind of weather we're going to end up with up here in the UP. Just last week it was raining, and this week we've had snowstorms. But despite whatever the weather brings, if it warms up enough in March, then we start the sapping season for maple syruping. We have 20 acres up here, and our maple trees spread out throughout the entire acreage. We have tapped over 100 trees. But we don't necessarily boil all of that down. We do it simply because we have the trees, and also things give a variation on how much sap comes from each one. And the weather can change very quickly. The rule of thumb with maple syruping or maple sapping is when the buds come out on the trees, that it's time to stop tapping that tree. The sap becomes bitter, will make a syrup that's not very flavorful. And we have learned that trees will bud independently of each other. We may have, a set of trees that bud this week, and we can still gather sap from other trees for another week. So another reason why we have so many bags on trees, or so many trees tapped. We gather the sap by 5-gallon buckets. And so far that's been the best way for us to do it. Our trees are too far apart for lines, and honestly that's a rather expensive way. Josiah had came up with making these bag holders, as getting the actual metal holders can be pretty expensive. So in the years past we've used gallon water jugs to gather, but this year we tried bags and we really seem to like it. It reduces the amount of trips we have to make to gather the syrup. So far we've gathered this year just about 140 gallons. So for every 40 gallons of sap, it is about 1 gallon. 40 to 50 gallons of sap, it's about 1 gallon of syrup. This is our first year with an evaporator. Usually we've done it with 3 metal pans that fill up the top of the stove. This year, Josiah, his big love is the maple sapping. He went ahead and purchased an evaporator to see how it worked, and so far we're loving it. We didn't think it'd be that big of a difference, but it does make a really huge difference. In the meantime, we've done some other things while we've boiled down sap. We had to get some chickens, as our flock is not only dwindling down, the remaining birds are quite elderly, and we get an occasional egg here and there. So this year we decided it was time to get back into the swing of things, and I'm not overly excited about it. We've been in the one-room cabin up until this past year. I did not like doing this because of our weather. As you just saw with all the snow, the birds have to stay inside for several weeks, and there was no getting away from them with the one-room cabin. Now that we have the extended room, it's a little bit better. We still have to clean the box daily, and they still stink because they're dirty little birdies. So, but a few more weeks and we'll be able to harden them off outside. We will all be happy. I'll probably do another set of 12 to make sure that we have plenty of eggs, as we go through a lot of eggs, and this egg shortage has been a real disaster for everybody. The snow has continued to come. Here you see our snow rake. We have to do this on all the roofs. They're getting ready to put a couple of goats back here in this weathered, what was once a play fort, turned into a storage shed, turned into an emergency goat housing. So the boys have gotten a lot bigger, the younger boys. You see Zeb's right there with his father, Zeb is actually taller than his father, but you can't tell on that incline. And they're big enough now. They're really trying to help as Ron navigates through the homestead chores with his I don't want to use the word disability, but with his issue of his joints. So they are truly a blessing, just as the older two have been on the homestead. And here's little Simmy. He's not so little anymore. He's as tall as I am. But lots of snow to remove. We have to do this on all of our roofs, our cabin roof, our barn roof, our trailer roofs, our truck roofs if we don't go anywhere. And when it rains and snows, that snow on top becomes so heavy that it's a danger. So we have to be on top of it. We just had a snowstorm and we just got 15 inches. This is before we got the snowstorm. This was what was left. So yeah, kind of a hodgepodge shelter, but it definitely works for an emergency shelter for a goat. Now this room that I'm videoing out of is one of the additions, and it brings us 12 foot closer to that little shed, which was, again, it was a quick fort for the kids when they were younger. So really had no intention of being this close to any type of barn. Back to the sapping. We don't talk enough about our dogs. We're definitely dog people, but we test the sap by putting a little bit into a container to see, once it cools, how thick it is. And we taste for the sweetness. There are more scientific ways to do it, but this is how we choose to do it. Once in a while, we do a reading. So we cook a lot on the low inflammation diet that Ron is on. I've switched completely over to maple syrup and honey for any type of treats that he gets. And we've always went through a lot of syrup anyways, but now it's just a dual purpose. It's not I use white sugar. It's no, I'll use maple syrup. I lost my jar remover, so I have to do it with a rag, but canning maple syrup is so easy. There's no water bathing. All you're doing is heating the jars up and the maple syrup and filling your jars. And then just putting on your lids and letting them seal that way. Because of the sugar content, that's just the way that all syrup is done. No water bathing needed. So it's a rather quick process. Not very tedious. So we've had a lot of other projects going on while we've been working on the syrup. And I pointed out the chickens were raising, or the chicks were raising. The regular homestead stuff, when you live in the north, there's still a lot of winter stuff to deal with. But also, I had a harebrained idea happen, and this is where my husband and I come together, and I have the vision, and he's able to bring it out to fruition. But since we've moved here, I haven't had a place for my cast iron. I used to have my cast iron hanging on hooks on an old beam. But that was it didn't last too long because it doesn't take long for cast iron that you don't use regularly to become real dusty next to a wood stove. So I've wanted a long time a cupboard for my cast iron, but it had to be specially built and it was not high on our priority list. But with the weather, and we happen to have some leftover materials from our building that we're hodgepodging some pieces together, and Ron is going to build me a cupboard for the cast iron. I'm kind of excited about it because he hasn't built a cupboard for quite a while. And I love it when he does these things for me, because it's kind of like I said, it's my vision of something I need that I wouldn't be able to purchase, and him being able to bring it to fruition for me. So here's a rough drawing of basically what I had in mind. And he's able to look at that and go, oh, I see, I can make heads and tails out of that. Basically what I want is a step back, but it's going to be very sturdy because what we had left over was 2x. He's like, boom, we'll be able to move that cupboard. And there's just some of the 2x that's in here drying out because they were so wet. But my stack of cast iron has been sitting for years now. I just moved it under this cupboard that the kids moved. You can almost see it. And I don't know how many pieces are under there, and that's not all of it, but those were mainly the ones that I've used most of the time. I have 2 pieces that I keep out that I still use all the time, but that stuff, it hasn't been used in years, so you can see that it's got some surface rust, a whole lot of dust. There's going to be some seasoning I'm going to have to definitely do for it. But once we get it all seasoned, I will put it into the cupboard behind the glass doors and feel better that I won't have to be cleaning dust off it every time I want to use a piece. So we started some rearranging. I had the kids, the older boys were available one day. So I said, hey, let's do this and have it ready for when the cupboard is done, because it would be some heavy moving. And you'll see I got everything loaded on the table there. But this is one of the cupboards that Ron and the boys made me, the 2 younger boys. And I usually, every time they make me something, I'll write on it what it says, who made it, what it was for, and the contributions that were made. So on this one, RJ and Josiah helped fund it, and the 2 younger boys helped make it. But that was the top part of this cupboard right here. So the new cupboard is going to sit there. We moved the refrigerator in that cupboard. This was an other video I did pointing out certain things. And it's going to be a combination. The top is going to be this tall, but deeper. But it's going to look more like this step back than that other. It'll have double doors. It'll have a bottom like that. And the top is primarily where the cast iron will hang. And I'll have a couple larger pieces on the bottom that I don't want to hang. There's the other thing is cast iron is hard to use when you get older. It's heavy. And so I'm trying to think how to be able to access it easily instead of being discouraged from not using it, because I do love cast iron. It's so fun to cook in, and it's really fun on the wood stove. I used it for years. Now I use a lot of stainless steel and enamel ware because it's another nice, safe alternative for cooking, and it's light. But there's just something about cast iron. Like I said, I have a couple pieces that I haven't put away that I use faithfully just because it's my go-to. This is a little rearranged. This is a cupboard that we've moved and rearranged here and there. We put this one next to the stove, and right now, Josiah's popping out of the bottom. He's such a turkey. I just slid my dirty old rusty looking cast iron into that, and that's where it's going to sit for now. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully here very soon I will be doing a video on the cupboard that Ron is making for our cast iron, and I'll just do a quick kitchen tour of how we rearrange things. So we didn't go crazy, but we did move the certain cupboards around, and I'm going to do one on our dining room off of our kitchen. Now that dining room is our old kitchen from the original cabin portion that was built back in 2016. So stay tuned for that. All right, until next time, God bless.